China is now the #1 money laundering country in the world, dealing with the cartels. And the reason, and the reason is people are trying to get their money out of China.
So they're utilizing cartels.
Yeah.
What does that process look like?
Well, that is the cartel goes to a Chinese handler and says, "Hey, here's X bazillion dollars. I want to get this money moved, from one place to another. Typically to the United States." That cartel person that Chinese person literally puts the money up for sale in China, right? They actually make a profit on it, which is why they charge the cartel so little. And they say, okay, we're going to move $2 million. We'll sell you this $2 million for $2,100,000. And someone says, great, I'll buy it, $2,100,000. And then that money appears, because they have relationships and networks, that money appears in the United States.
Really?
Yeah. So everyone gets, what they want. There's a movement of money, but nothing's official. Mm-hmm. It's always done. Tell you the truth, I didn't even know what I was doing at the time. I was in college in Taiwan. So Nick, would you take these red chits to Hong Kong and give it to a friend of mine and, take a bottle of whiskey for yourself? I thought, hey, that was great. Came to learn in later years, young and dumb, as they say, but came to learn in later years that those red chits were money transfers. Right? It was just done with a chit.
Yeah.
Instead of that. And turns out that's the way I used to pay, years later in restaurants in the United States, Chinese restaurants in the US, that's the way I paid my bills, for, red chips. Currency, at some point currency was passed.
Yeah.
But it was always, humanistic relationship in, I trust you for the money, you're going to give it to me or you're going to give it to him, that type of thing. So amazing the way they move money like that.
Yeah, let me ask that, because it's crazy too, because we're talking about, everything with the cartels is an absolute mess right now. Trump, is talking about special forces going down there, we're labeling terrorist group. Obviously the fentanyl thing, which China, I know, is a really big part in that.
Right.
But before going into that, I guess, does the U.S. or CIA specifically, or, I guess the FBI could fall in this as well, but do they see this pipeline being created and instead, is there an opportunity for the U.S. or they have made moves to become that middleman instead of it being the cartels? Because obviously you're draining China, and if the money's coming in the U.S., it's somewhat of a net positive. You're getting the money out of, China coming to the U.S. There's some difficulty.
It is. So the deal is that China has a limit. I think it's 50,000, 25 or 50,000 money that you can send out of the country. But of course, as things get bad, the multi-millionaires want stuff
everything out.
Right? They want to, put a handout. There are some issues with the E5B visa, in which case you have to invest in the United States. And when you invest in the United States with that visa and employ something like a dozen people, X hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, then you get a green card. You can come over, or family members get a green card. So, but that's tough, particularly when you're moving dirty funds. And China's moved a lot of corrupt funds over. So, this evolution, and just Chinese people were brilliant in the way they executed it, right? Everyone got discounted. They took advantage of the fact people want to move money out of the country. They did it quietly, so that it go, and it's set up a substructure. I don't know. First off, CIA, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure they're clueless about it. The FBI is engaged with it. I've actually consulted the DEA on it. They're very engaged in it. So, FBI and DEA are very aggressively looking at it. And I'm sure Treasury is as well, right? FinCEN, the Financial Intelligence Center. But it's a difficult thing. You're tracking down. This is where AI comes in, as you start to track down those types of funds that move globally. And, hopefully they have access to you. And then you start adding in things like blockchain, right? Where it goes into multiple accounts, basically.
Yeah,
and you don't know who's behind them. You just have a number. It's a pretty complex and difficult thing to do.